Hi everyone, welcome back to our clean architecture and BLoC in Flutter series. In this episode, we'll add dependency injection to our Flutter app using Getit package. Dependency injection helps us create shared services once and inject them everywhere. For example, like API clients, repositories, and use cases. Dependency injection means creating and providing the objects your classes need from a central place instead of creating them everywhere. For example, instead of constructing an API client every time, we create it once and give it to whoever needs it. In this project, we'll use the Getit package. It's a small, well-known, and perfect for Flutter dependency injection. Let's install it in terminal. I do it by flutter pub add getit command. And you can see the Getit package is added to our pub-spec YAML file. Now let's create a new file to configure dependency injection. Let's create a new folder for dependency injection, also known as our service locator, inside the core folder. I name it DI, means dependency injection. Then inside it, create a new file called servicelocator.dart. This file will be responsible for registering and managing all our app's dependencies in one central place. Here, I create a global instance of our Getit and call it service locator. Now let's add a simple setup function. Setup service locator. This function will be responsible for initializing everything our app needs. Now, inside our setup service locator function, we're going to start registering the classes that will be part of our dependency injection system. Any class that will be injected into other classes or needs to be injected itself should be registered here. For example, our News API client, which handles the HTTP requests, will be used in multiple parts of the app. So instead of creating a new instance every time, we'll register it once here and reuse the same instance everywhere. We do it using service locator dot register lazy singleton. Register lazy singleton means it's created the first time it's requested and then reused everywhere. If you want it created immediately, use register singleton instead. Here, I specify the type of the dependency. In this case, it's News API client, and return an object of the class here. Alright, next let's move on to the news repository. As you can see here, its constructor needs a News API client, so we'll pass that in. Service locator dot register lazy singleton. The type is news repository, and we'll return news repository implementation. Notice I typed the registration as news repository, but passed news repository implementation. That means when we ask for news repository, Getit will return the news repository implementation instead. The reason we did this is that news repository is defined as an abstract class, so we can't create an instance of it directly. Okay, as you can see, the news repository implementation depends on News API client. So we should inject News API client in it. We do this by writing service locator and specifying the exact type we want from the service locator. In this case, News API client. Okay, that's it. Now let's do the same for our get news use case. As you can see, get news use case is dependent on news repository. So we should register the get news use case and inject news repository instance in it. We do this in the same way. Service locator.register lazy singleton with type get news use case. And now we inject news repository using our service locator. Let's add a few comments here to make our code more organized. Alright, now let's move on to the BLoC class that we created in the previous lesson. As you can see here, this class depends on the get news use case. So let's go ahead and inject that dependency. Service locator dot register factory. As you can see here, we register NewsBloc as a factory. So each request returns a new NewsBloc with a fresh lifecycle. And register factory will call the factory function every time someone requests a NewsBloc. This means every time we open the news screen, a new instance of NewsBloc will be created, and the news will be loaded from scratch. If we don't want that to happen, for example, if we want to keep the previous state, we could use register singleton or lazy register singleton instead. But since this is just for learning purposes, we'll keep it as a factory for now. Okay, that's it for now. Now let's call the setup service locator function before run app so all services are registered before the UI builds. Now I'm going to rename the my app class to Awesome News app just to give our project a more unique name. Now that we did some dependency injections, our BLoC is now ready to use. But before that, we need to make sure it's actually provided to the widget tree. Since our project might have more than one BLoC in the future, it's best to use the multi-BLoC provider widget. Inside its providers list, we'll add our BLoC provider. And return our NewsBloc using service locator. Just make sure that the BLoC is already registered inside our setup service locator method before using it here. Okay, nice. That's all for this part. In the next episode, we'll move on to building the app screens. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe.